In the last video, I showed how we could create a reusable component here, like bar, and use that within multiple different other components. I thought I'd take that and extend it a bit further. So this one's actually not really to do with loaders, but I might actually just rename this project to components. The component I'm going to make is just a simple button. So I'm going to create a new element called button, and I'm going to set some properties on the button. Let's make it 200 wide by 48 high. And okay, that'll be the default size for the button. Let's set a color. Well, actually, let me drag and drop it onto the canvas first, and then we'll adjust the appearance once it's in the context. So let's drag it here into the center of this screen, and as you can see there, we've just got a white rectangle. Go back into the button element, and let's add some text. So I'll drop some text in there. Let's bump up the size a bit, something like that maybe. Let's look at the actually, let's make it wider. So we'll make it have a padding of 8 points either end of the button text, and let's make it center aligned. I'll take the rectangle and I'll add a radius. Let's go 8. All right. And for this button, I'm going to add a couple of states. So the first one is not pressed, and the next one is pressed. So now we have those two states. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a gesture handler. At the moment you can't do that through the element library, but you can do it in code. So I'll go in here and I'll include a gesture handler for a tap, and I'll call this button. Okay, so to go from not pressed to pressed, I'm going to add a transition. In some of the other videos I was kind of mixing up my terms. I was using transition when I was actually meaning easing, but anyway, so this is a transition between these two states. Button, so this will transition when the button is pressed. You'll see now already if I press this button, it moves from not pressed to pressed. It doesn't return because I didn't click auto reverse. So if I do that, now when I press it and release, it goes back to not pressed. Let's go back into design mode, and what you can do is you can choose one of these states. Well, actually, if neither of the states are selected, like this, any of the changes you make will apply to all of the states. But let's say that we want to make a specific state. Well, actually, in this case, with no states selected, I'm going to go and choose that rectangle. You can either choose properties, or you can hit this little properties button there to switch over to the properties tab for that item. Let me change the color to be, I don't know, let's go amber. I kind of like that color. And now in the pressed state, I'm going to change the color to be orange. Okay. And we'll click on this transition, and I'm going to add well, actually, let's demonstrate how it works first before I add any easings. Right now, it changes from unpressed to pressed when I click on it. Let me add an easing curve for that, because I don't know, sometimes it looks better with an easing curve. Sometimes buttons and things, you want the action to happen immediately. And this is probably a good case for decay. So the decay curve will it'll pretty quickly start switching over. But let's increase the friction so that it happens more quickly. It'll transition quicker. There we go. I think that looks pretty neat. Now, if you look at this in context, here's a button in context. We can go and change properties like the default state. So I've overridden that now, and now it's not changing anymore. I can clear that override, and now it will work correctly. But let's say that we want to, or we might want to be able to change the color of those that button whenever we instantiate it. So let's go into the button and create a couple of properties that we can then set. So I'm going to create a new property. I generally put these, let's group these together. Generally speaking, I'll create properties at the top like this, and then set the other properties down below. So let's add a new color. Color not pressed, and I'm going to say that that's amber. Amber. And here I'm going to assign that to be color not pressed. And property color pressed. And I'm going to make that orange. Okay, now when we go back to app, we'll have a couple of properties here that we can actually change. So for example, let's say when it was pressed, if I didn't want it to go orange, but I want it to go deep orange, I could change that here. And now when I click it, you can see that it changes to deep orange. Okay, well at the moment we can control those colors, but we can't control the text. So just like we did with colors, we'll go in here and create a couple of, we'll create a property. Property for, well, that's a type string. We'll say label. Okay, that'll do. And rather than having it just fixed as text, we'll say this is root.label. Now you'll notice that up here I was able to refer to these properties without adding root in front of it, and that's because they're at that level. Because this property in here is within this text element, if I don't have root, Zing won't be able to find it. So just add root dot, and then it'll say, okay, I need to look for this element up here called root and find that property within that. So if I now switch back to app, hang on, interestingly, it's blank. And the reason for that is that this has no property. But if I say here button, now when I select it, I can label that button whatever I want. So I could say tap on me, right? And when I tap on it, well, nothing really happens. Let's have a look at what we can do about that. So when you tap on this element, the thing that is actually capturing that tap event is this gesture recognizer. And in here, we can do things like on tapped, root.label equals tapped. Okay, so what's going to happen is when I click on it, this gesture recognizer is going to detect that it was tapped, and it's going to go and replace the text. Whatever text is in that label, it's going to replace it with tapped. So let's try that out. There we go. I think that's probably enough for now.